So what are we gonna do about these guys, huh?
Carla,
What?
you're not prejudiced against gays, are you?
Well, I'm not exactly crazy about them. I mean, I get enough competition from women. I'm telling you, if guys keep coming out of the closet, there isn't gonna be anybody left to date, and I'm gonna have to start going out with girls. Ew.
Carla, you don't have to worry about me. I like my dates a little more masculine than you. Not much, but a little.
Making your way in the world today takes everything you've got. Taking a break from all your worries sure would help a lot. Wouldn't you like to get away? Sometimes you wanna go where everybody knows your name.
You are listening to Gayest Episode Ever, the podcast about episodes of classic TV shows that deal with LGBT themes. I'm Drew Mackey.
I'm Glen Lakin.
And if that intro didn't tip you off, today we are talking about Cheers, specifically the episode The Boys in the Bar. Glenn, why are we talking about this episode today?
This is one of a few episodes of Cheers that deal with gay issues. This is in the first season, and it's the episode where, because Sam embraces a former friend and colleague who has come out of the closet, the other men in the bar are worried Cheers will become a gay bar. So it is another episode about straight panic.
Straight panic, and actually features at least a real gay character. I guess 3 real gay characters, sort of. But
And maybe a couple fake gay characters.
I am glad we are talking about this episode because it's a pretty well-written piece of TV, and the way it deals with gay themes is especially good for something that aired in like early 1983. Yeah, for something from this period, it's basically everything I could want from a gay episode of a sitcom.
When you said you wanted to do this show, I was insistent from the get-go that we talk about this episode. It was the one episode of TV I really want to talk about.
Sorry to make you suffer through the other 9 episodes of garbage that we've talked about.
Well, I mean, I sort of had a bit of a moment of panic yesterday before I sat down to rewatch it, wondering now, having watched 9 other classic episodes of gay TV, if this episode of Cheers would lose its luster, if it would come off as tone deaf, if it just wasn't as good as I remember, having now seen other sitcoms deal with it. And so, yeah, I was very, very worried. But spoiler alert, I still love it.
Yeah, it's great. It's a great perspective on Diane Chambers, who is Shelley Long's character. And kind of in the same way that when we did the Simpsons episode, I'm like, I'm so excited to talk about the Simpsons. I'm so excited to talk about Shelley Long because she's a very important person in my life. I don't know her, but I feel like she's in my life. And
That's because you live with me. And I am Diane Chambers.
I feel like I'm Diane Chambers too.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
We can't both be Diane Chambers. Is Thurman Sam?
I think we should write a movie called Too Many Diane Chamberses. No, doesn't work.
Diane's Chamber.
That's porn.
Whatever.
That's porn. Cheers, if you somehow don't know.
If you don't know what Cheers is, turn off this podcast right now. I don't want my voice in your ears.
It's weird, but ran for 11 seasons on NBC, 1982 to 1993. My joke is that I like to say that it's like Wings, but instead of an airport, it takes place in a bar. I don't know if people understand that I'm making a joke when I say that, but I think it's funny. I suppose it's worth pointing out that this aired during the first season, which was not something that people really watched when it was first on. I was looking up this episode when it was first broadcast was the 41st most viewed show that week, which is to say that no one was really paying attention to it. It got renewed by NBC anyway because it got nominated for some awards. And based on the renewal and the Emmy nominations, it kind of started pulling better ratings in the summer when they were doing reruns, because that's where most people found it for the first time. And it slowly climbed its way up from there. It was even worse overall for the entire season. It was the 74th most watched show, which means that it was pulling worse ratings than both Trapper John MD, and that's incredible.
It's worth mentioning that the first season of Cheers is sort of a weird beast and not really like the other seasons once it started gaining popularity. And because this is before the days of like Netflix and Hulu, people who saw second season and beyond didn't really have a way of seeing early Cheers until it was in syndication.
Right.
But this first season is very socially aware, and each episode really plays out like a short play. Which a lot of sitcoms do, but...
It's Norman Lear-esque, you could say.
It's Norman Lear-esque, but there's just a stage quality to it that some of the other sitcoms we've watched didn't have.
It's like a 2-act play, because it literally is just two long scenes back to back.
Yeah, and it does deal with dark themes. There's an episode in the first season where Diane loses her childhood cat, and that brings up all these old emotions from when she was a young girl and her parents were getting a divorce, and she contemplated suicide. Having that cat and caring for that cat were what kept her from killing herself. And that's pretty dark for a sitcom in 1982.
Especially considering like where Diane Chambers would go in future seasons, which is, I guess there's a reason I say this is one of the best perspectives we ever get on her, because it's everything I like about her and everything that people find irritating about her in the best possible light.
On one hand, that is just sort of Shelley Long's, the rise in her career and her just becoming a bigger thing. And it's also because they introduced Frasier, and Frasier sort of took away the best parts of Shelley Long's character.
Right.
He got to be the one who was introducing culture to the bar.
Right.
And all she had going for her was that she was in this weird relationship with Sam Malone.
So, yeah, I suppose it should just, so everyone can understand Diane's like dynamic on the show. She was introduced as a potential love interest for Sam. They dated, they didn't date. It was an on again, off again thing. She eventually started dating Frasier, and then Shelley Long herself didn't like having Kelsey Grammer on set, probably because she was aware that his presence was taking away from what her character was supposed to do. And then she left the show after season 5 to go make movies. I think let's talk about the movies on the right. Back end of this, but like there might be a reason we both sort of relate to both Diane Chambers and Shelley Long.
Well, I mean, the first season especially has Diane Chambers bringing a sort of like Pygmalion, My Fair Lady in reverse-esque quality to the show. Like Sam is the ruffian and she is the cultured one,
right?
Thinking she sees potential in him, and this is, in this episode especially, looks at Sam and sees her lessons on being socially aware, on the humanities, paying off or rubbing off on him.
Just because someone will like point out that we didn't say this if we don't say it outright. The name of the episode, The Boys in the Bar, is a reference to the movie and play The Boys in the Band. Was a Broadway play, became a movie, is on stage now, is weirdly current. Also, the original staging of it was directed by the guy who was the guest star in the Mary Tyler Moore episode. We talked about that.
Yeah, ugly one.
Oh, God damn it, Glenn. This episode is also about Glenn Burke. Have I told you about Glenn Burke before? It's like one of like my favorite like trivia footnotes in like American pop culture.
How does he spell his name?
2 N's.
Wrong.
So he was a professional baseball player for the Oakland A's and then the Dodgers. And he got injured, I think, and then quit pro baseball and then came out in 1982. So the portion of this episode that deals with one of Sam's teammates coming out as gay is allegedly inspired by the Glenn Burke story. And that is an interesting story just because he was one of the first pro athletes to come out in that way. He was quietly out to all his teammates when he was on the team. And some people say that no one cared. Some people say that some people did care and were jerks about it. He also invented high-fiving. Have I ever told you this?
I think you may have told me this.
So
I just didn't care, so I forgot.
You should care. It's such a weird thing. Okay, so people probably gave high fives before 1977. Like your parents, when they were younger, probably gave or at least saw high fives being given. However, there is not a single documentation of high fives being given or the term high five until after 1977, when Glenn Burke, playing for the Dodgers, gave one to Dusty Baker because he had hit a home run, was rounding the bases, and Glenn Burke put his hand up and Dusty Baker like reflexively slapped it in a sort of, teammate camaraderie way. And that was recorded on cameras and people noticed it. And as near as we can tell, that is the first time we know someone gave a high five in the way that we give high fives now. And it's just a very weird thing to think about. High fives you gave a high five the last episode to Emily. Like it's just a part of our
I was trying to slap her.
Well, I guess you failed. But it was a really good high five though. Like you didn't biff it. So I mean, at least good for that. It's just kind of mind-blowing to think that not only did these things not exist before 1977, but also that it was a gay man who was like at least halfway responsible for doing it. Then after he retired, it became kind of his thing, and he lived in the Castro, and he gave high fives as like a greeting to his like fellow neighbor gays.
So you're saying the high five was the original gay handshake as opposed to a blowjob?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So whenever you see straight people giving a high five, point out that they're appropriating your culture, and that I guess...
And I'll slap them.
I guess Glenn Burke was also black, so I guess we were probably appropriating his culture as white gays tend to do. But yeah. This episode was directed by James Burrows, who is like the most prolific TV director ever, probably. Mm-hmm. He directed all but 35 of the 275 episodes of Cheers. And then he also directed Mary Tyler Moore, Rhoda, Phyllis, The Hogan Family, Dear John, Night Court, Wings, Frasier, Friends, News Radio, Caroline in the City, Dharma and Greg, and Will and Grace. I'm reading off this list, but I wrote it as Will and Grave, which I think is a much more interesting show. I guess that's Will and Grace with like a goth Grace. Yeah.
I don't know. I just kind of want to write that comic book now.
Please write that comic book. It's weird that we haven't done a Jimmy Burrows episode yet, but the episode was written by Ken Levine and David Isaacs, who are co-producers on the show, and also have ginormous bodies of TV work, including many of the things I mentioned in the Burrows sentence. Did you know, Glenn, that Ken Levine is also a director sometimes and directed a little movie called Mannequin 2 on the Move?
I have mixed feelings about Mannequin 2 on the Move.
I just like that Mannequin has had such a weirdly enduring presence on this pod, and by which I mean it's come up twice, and that's two more than it might have come up. I don't know.
I mean, it probably should have come up like 8 or 9 times, and you just edited them out. I wouldn't know.
You would remember talking about it.
I'm always talking about Mannequin.
I wouldn't edit out you talking about Mannequin. I just edit out you talking about things that make you sound dumb. Yeah. Yeah. The episode was nominated for Outstanding Writing in a Comedy Series, but lost to the pilot for Cheers. It did win a WGA award, and a group called AGLA, the Alliance for Gay and Lesbian Artists in the Entertainment Industry, awarded the episode for realistic depiction of homosexuals. I do not believe that AGLA exists anymore. I couldn't really find, but nice that they said something about it, right?
Depends what the trophy looked like.
The details from this period of history are spotty at best. Historical records are spotty at best. Is that the line? Oh, sorry. So yeah, we're at the cold open.
It's meaningless. Let's skip it. I mean, oh my God, did you have a stretch metaphor? I thought about making one, but I was like... What
was the stretch metaphor?
Something about putting the cover on the pool table.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Okay, so real quick, the cold open has Harry Anderson of Night Court fame, but he was recurring on Cheers as like a con man named Harry, right? Yeah. And he basically cons Sam and Diane into getting free drinks because he's a jerk who always does this. But when Sam comes into the back room where Harry is playing pool, he's like, Harry, how did you get in here? He's like, oh, I came
in the back door. I don't have a back door, Harry. Well, then it's my secret.
And if you're talking about not wanting to appear gay, the idea of having like a secret accessible back door that you don't want other people to know about, I didn't think that wasn't my read on the situation, but I'm like, okay, I actually wrote in my notes, Glenn, do you have any thoughts on this interaction? I guess you don't. I guess
I did think about that, but I was like, that's a little juvenile. I'm just kidding. We're a very juvenile podcast at times, but yeah, I'm just so excited to talk about the actual content of the episode.
Yeah, I agree. So it is meaningless. Scene 1, we're in the bar. Diane is returning to work from 5 hours in a sensory deprivation tank, and there's a book release party happening in the bar. Is there anything, you have any thoughts on the fact that she spent 5 hours in a sensory deprivation tank?
No, it just sort of opens up with like poking fun at Diane for, on one hand, being, I don't know, not woke enough, but like, it's poking fun at Diane for being one of these eccentric intellectuals who'd be in a sensory deprivation booth, but not be immediately aware that there is a book release.
Never have I felt more aware and sensitive to what's going on around me.
Excuse me.
Oh, excuse me. You see, the whole idea is that there's a total lack of sensory input. What the hell's going on here?
It's a book promotion party.
How could that be in a place where no one can read?
My old roommate, Tom Kenderson, Wrote his own autobiography, and I'm in it.
Oh. So this is a press conference to announce the arrival of yet another thick-headed jock epic. Well, there must be confetti all over the Library of Congress,
Hey,
huh?
for your information, this one happens to be different. It's got a lot of good stuff in it.
Like what?
Well, I haven't read it, actually.
Oh,
No.
didn't want to wear out your lips?
So it's making fun of Diane before she gets to be like a star in this episode.
She's the hero of this episode. She's the heart of this episode. And
Well, I'd say Sam is the heart of this episode.
oh, interesting. Okay. Well, we can argue that out. But I feel like they wanted to. They had to have a way to remind us that Diane Chambers is kind of a fruitcake, and like she has like weird ideas about stuff, and like only a batty weirdo would want to probably pay to spend money in a sensory deprivation tank. But yeah, she's not immediately aware that there's a book release party, and it is for Sam's former teammate, Tom Kenderson, who, in addition to being Sam's teammate, was also his roommate and best friend. And he wrote a book called The Catcher's Mask.
He's a catcher.
Oh, I didn't think about that either. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's a gay baseball player, and he's a catcher, and Sam's a pitcher.
Right. Oh my gosh. I did not think about that. You're totally right. Okay. That's actually a pretty good joke.
I mean, the show gets us set up out of the way pretty seamlessly. Like, everyone seems to have a story about Tom. Like, Sam shares their wild escapades. Coach talks about Tom playing pranks on him. And when he enters, Carla immediately is like in love with him.
Hey, wow, what did you do, huh?
How about this?
Sam.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Carla Tortelli, Tom Kenderson.
Carla, nice to meet you.
I love you, Tom Kenderson. Look here. Here's my number and a couple of quotes from past lovers.
Thank you, Carla.
Carla, just come in, sweetheart.
Sam, he breathed on me, Sam. I'm a whole woman.
Coach.
And he's pretty much put forward as a man's man, a real Sam Malone, one might say. And Sam embraces him as such. Like, this is like one of my former best friends. We are basically the same person, which will fall flat on its face when he stands up with Tom in front of the press. And a reporter asks, so how'd you feel about Tom coming out?
He's not read the book.
He's not read the book.
He was supposed to have read the book. He did not. And Diane is like speed reading through the book and actually seems to get to that point in the book before the announcement has happened. And
Diane gets a lot of good jokes in about how people in this bar can't read.
Right. I want to say a quick thing about the actor playing Tom, Alan Autry.
Name's familiar.
So
Did I sleep with him?
I'm most assuredly you did not. I know him from being on the Carol O'Connor series In the Heat of the Night, which was a rural Southern cop procedural that I don't know why it was on in syndication at like 2 p.m. So if I had a minimum day, I would come home, and before you got to cartoons, you had to watch an hour of In the Heat of the Night. He was on that. He also became the mayor of Fresno from 2000 to 2008. Christian homophobe, Republican, argued in favor of Prop 8. Did not want gays to be married. So apparently playing a gay character in this episode did not give him empathy for what it's like to be an actual gay person.
So it's a real scandal that we slept together.
Yes, it really is. He's not... I don't necessarily find him to be super like attractive as Carla seems to find him in this episode. He's much less attractive now, and also has given up acting to appear on like the 700 Club. That's basically his TV. Yeah, I know. Glenn made a barf face, but so yeah. Sam realizes he's gay. He's not joking. Like, this is not another famous Tom prank, and
immediately ducks out of Tom's embrace. They had their arms around each other,
right?
And Sam immediately drops his arm, and, you know, as we have covered on this podcast before, straight histrionics.
Is this some kind of joke, Tom?
I wanted you to read the book, Sam. It's still hard for me to tell people from the old days.
Sam, you were saying that you two used to do everything together.
No, you misunderstood that. No. As a matter of fact, people used to come up to me and say, hey, you know, you two are best friends, and yet you're completely different.
Sam, there's an emergency in the back room.
What?
I found holes in the pool table.
She gives him the parts of the book that he should have read. And Sam's in disbelief because like the idea that this person he knows could be gay is a complete violation of his idea that he's like an inveterate skirt chaser, as he remembers him. And Diane points out he was overcompensating. That he
Here, in this paragraph right here. You want me to read it?
No, I'll read it. Right there?
Yes.
From the outside, my days in baseball seemed glorious. But the greater my fear became of my true sexuality, the more I compensated with typical Don Juan promiscuity.
Does that explain it?
I don't know. I've only read it once.
He was denying who he was. He's no longer doing that.
You know, I should have known. I remember sitting in a piano bar with him and he requested a show tune.
Which, when someone comes out, that is the bottom line.
Mm-hmm.
Like, don't read things into things, whatever. Like, the situation is not yours to understand.
Mm-hmm.
This is what it was. It's now this.
Right. Yeah, that's really tough for people.
Yeah, I mean, and I think in other episodes we've talked about people want to make someone's coming out about them. And I just want to be very clear that unless I was married to you and you're a woman that I've had children with and shared a life with,
Right.
I don't owe you anything when I come out because it's not about you. And I've had people in my life who like gave me shit about not coming out to them in the quote unquote right way. And like, I don't know what the right way is. I did it on my own timetable.
Wait, how did you, like, what was the wrong way? What's the example of the wrong way?
Well, I've had people say it was the wrong way if I did it over email instead of a phone call or in person or when I did it. And it should have been a bigger event. Like, I should have taken them out to drinks. And it's just like, absolutely not.
Yeah, that sounds like a huge pain in the ass. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Though to my freshman year roommate's credit, when I was ready to come out to him, he's also gay. Like, he ordered a pizza and put on Hello Dolly, and we stayed up until like 4 a.m. watching musicals and eating pizza. And he just let me say what I needed to say. And that is a right way to come out.
That's good. Yeah.
But again, it was when I was ready to do it, and it had nothing to do with anyone else. So Sam's hurt in this situation, while understandable, and he does quickly move past making it about him. Yeah, that's my rant.
I'm just running through my head about people that like I've had that conversation with and people I haven't had that conversation with. There's a lot of fucking people from like high school or even early college that, or like family members that I don't have real relationships with, where I have never had that conversation and I don't know how they feel about it, but like the internet made that a lot easier. And like posting these Gayest Episode Ever podcasts on Facebook, be like, well, this is what I'm talking about. I'm not going to restrict it so only certain people can see this. I actually want people to listen to it. But I skipped over any sort of formal introduction to my homosexuality because I don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
you eventually get over caring.
Yeah. Yeah. Just Google my name. Gay stuff comes up. I don't really care.
So I understand why you said you thought Diane was the heart of the episode, but I think she's the moral compass of the episode, which is different because this is not personal to her. And it's in the scene where she sort of makes the argument to Sam that this isn't about the issue of homosexuality. This is about a friend he has who is close to him who needs him in this moment.
Sam, I do understand why you're upset. You're afraid that now people will think that you're...
No, I'm not upset. I'm not upset. It's just that guys should be guys, Diane. That's all.
Sam, look, your friend Tom's out there. He needs your support now more than ever before. He really hasn't changed. He's still the same guy you used to tinkle off balconies with.
And so Sam goes back out into the bar, embraces Tom. It's like, you were there for me when I was an alcoholic. I'm going to be here for you now. and he like embraces him again in front of the press, and
Allows photos to be taken of them together.
allows photos to be taken together, which will lead into the second half of this episode. But in this moment, I think is doing what we have wanted other episodes that we've talked about to do, and they have made, even though this is a one-off character, they have made the gay plot integral to the main character of this show. It's about him. It's about him coming to terms with something and making a choice about someone who is important to his life.
Yeah, I gotta say, a different show, it might have been all about Sam's process of trying to reconcile his discomfort around homosexuality with his feeling towards his friend, but he gets there in like 90 seconds, honestly. It's like that conversation with Diane to him going out again. And I even like that the way he lets Tom know that he's still welcome in the bar is a very Sam Malone way. He asks him, "Are you still a gin and tonic man?" And that is all he really says. And then Tom understands that he doesn't have to leave. He's still welcome here. And it's a very nice... It's a nice moment, and it's a very Sam Malone way of addressing the situation. And then he goes out and like puts his arm around him again and says that it's okay. And
Yeah, the show doesn't shy away from that dumb, in hindsight, moment of Sam saying like he thinks guys should be guys. Like he says it, Diane makes a horrified face, and then he quickly finds the better path. And even that line you said, like referring to him as a gin and tonic man, he's acknowledging that he is still a man, and being gay does not make him less of a man, less of a friend, less of a baseball player.
Right.
So yeah, this show accomplishes in one act what a lot of shows spend their whole episode doing, which allows them to move on to the second act.
This moves along very quickly and is a very lean plot. There is not really a B plot. There's an act 1 and an act 2 that are tangentially related. But by act 2, it's the day after. The story is run in the local papers. Everyone's reading the local paper. And Tom does not show up again. He's not a character. He doesn't show up again in another episode. He does not show up again in the second half of this episode, which is sort of surprising. This half is all about something Norm mutters at the end of the first act, which is something about Vito's pub. And as everyone's looking at this nice picture of Sam and Tom in the paper together, Sam asks Norm, "What did you mean by that?"
Hey, Norm. What was that you said yesterday when they were taking pictures about Vito's pub?
It's nothing. Don't worry about it.
Talk to me, Norm.
Okay, I think it's best he hears it from us. Go ahead, tell him the story.
All right, you heard of Vito's Pub?
Yeah, it's a gay bar, right?
Yeah, it didn't used to be. It used to be a great bar. I hung out there myself.
Wow, what a story, Norm.
I'm not finished.
There's more?
One night, Vito lets a gay group hold a meeting in the back room, right? Gays for the metric system or something. Story got in the newspaper, gets a lot of attention. Next thing you know, Vito's Pub turns into Vito's Pub. All the regulars left, Sammy. Out went the oars and the moose heads. In came plants and ferns. Ferns. Just don't want that to happen at Cheers and so on.
I don't believe that stuff. Bars don't turn gay overnight.
You don't have to believe me. I have scientific proof. Cliff?
It happened.
See?
This is a very odd episode for Norm, and he's really the one who comes off looking the worst.
It would have made more sense for me to have Cliff be the one, because Cliff objects to things a lot and likes to correct people, and Norm is just kind of, especially as the show goes on, he's lazy. He doesn't care about anything. He just is, he wants to be left alone and do his thing, which kind of makes sense why he'd be worried about the bar going gay, but whatever. This is just the version of Norm we're getting in this episode. 2 quick things. Number 1, I can never point out to people often enough that George Wendt, who plays Norm, is Jason Sudeikis' uncle. And once this is pointed out to you, you're looking at Jason Sudeikis, who I think is a fairly good-looking guy, you'll see flashes of George Wendt in there for like just a second from a certain angle. He'll look just like George Wendt. You'd be like, ah, George Wendt. It's like he's like possessed by the ghost of George Wendt. George Wendt is not dead.
No, he is not.
Number 2, fern bars were a trend in late 70s, early 80s. They were like upper scale, cleaner yuppie bars that were trying to attract female clientele, where either they wouldn't be hit on as grossly, or at least the men who would be there would be on their level and maybe they'd actually want to consider dating these guys. They weren't gross barflies like Norm and Cliff. And they don't really exist anymore, but one of the first ones was the first TGI Fridays before it became a chain. And now the only vestige we get of Fern bars is like Bennigan's and TGI Fridays, and I guess sort of Applebee's, but any place that has those like faux Tiffany lamps and Ferns, I guess. But I feel like we should just open a Fern bar because it's been enough time that we can bring it back and people would like to listen to like Fleetwood Mac and drink fancy cocktails.
I mean, that's my night right there.
Right. Yeah, let's do that.
Back to Cheers.
Sorry.
This is the point where Diane blows Norm's mind by telling him.
The fact of the matter is there are gay people in this bar all the time.
Well, no way. I haven't seen a gay guy in here in ages.
Oh, I see you can spot a gay person?
A mile away.
And there are none in here right now?
Nope. Looks like a straight crowd to me. Too ugly to be gay. Too ugly to be out.
Well, I wasn't going to say anything, but you've gone so far in proving you're open-minded, Norman. There are 2 homosexual gentlemen in this bar at this moment.
Come on, get out of here.
They told me they were gay, that they appreciated what Sam had done. That's right, guys. They're here right now, and you don't even know who they are.
Which does send him in a bit of a spiral, trying to figure out who the 2 gay men are. And of course, the show offers him 2 obvious candidates. They come one man in a very trendy gay mustache, and another like very attractive blonde guy in very tight jeans.
I noticed that as well. He's very good looking. I looked him up. I'm 99% certain that the blonde guy is an actor named John Fury, who is the final girl's boyfriend in Friday the 13th Part 2. And that the guy with a mustache is an actor named Michael Kearns, who's one of the first openly gay actors from this era. And also he came out as being HIV positive kind of a long time ago, back when there was very few celebrities who were open about that status. And I found him on Facebook and I sent him a message last night being like, hey, I think this is you, but can you confirm that this is the character you played? He has not responded to me as of the recording of this podcast. So if I get it wrong, I'm sorry. But I like at least that one of the potentially gay seeming men in this episode is played by an actual gay man, maybe. But they asked for light beer.
They asked for light beer, which is like the clincher.
But most beer is light now. Like most people, 6-packs are like Coors Light, Bud Light. Like straight men don't object to drinking light beer. I hate light beer. I think it tastes like garbage. But
I mean, whatever. Beer's beer sometimes. I agree. Like, all right, well, I'll drink whatever. Light beer is great for Speedball, which I've mentioned on this podcast before.
You would actually drink like Coors Light?
Oh, yeah. And Tecate. I don't know if Tecate is light beer. But you just want to drink beer that's as close to water as possible because like you're not going to chug an IPA.
No, it's too good to
savor.
chug.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Light beer is great for chugging.
I guess I'm past the point of chugging in my life, but I've never been invited to one of your Speedball parties, so I don't know.
Do you want me to throw one?
Kind of.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the men of the bar argue about what to do in this situation.
Did you notice that Cliff accused Norm of being gay because they've never seen Vera?
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny that like they'd already pointed out early in the first season that like they'd never seen Vera, and you never see Norm's wife Vera. Right. She's always off screen.
Well, you said that James Burrows directed to Mary Tyler Moore, so he's probably aware of the trope from that because you don't see Phyllis's husband ever.
It's true. Yeah.
So I think it was just a thing that was in sitcoms, like, let's not pay an actress to be this person. Let's just reference her off screen. Yeah, but things get sort of loud. A third potential gay comes in. Someone comments that it's an orgy, at which point Diane's like, if anyone would like to have an intellectual...
Sam, I'm telling you, within a month, there's going to be wild music and guys dancing and exchanging phone numbers.
You know, Sam, you've got some really great friends here. You've gone out of your way to make a bar where customers can feel like they belong, part of a family, and now they're walking out on you.
We don't want them.
Perhaps we should step into the back room. Anyone having something intelligent to say can follow me. Fine. anyone with a two-bit opinion.
All right.
What do the potential gay guys think is going on at this point? Because there's no one else in the bar, and literally the bar empties except for Coach, who's behind the bar. Everyone else goes in the back room and just leaves them there. So they're like, what the fuck is happening? Like, they have to be, anyway.
They do acknowledge that this is the weirdest bar they've ever been to,
right?
As this episode wraps up. Once in the back room, everyone tries to sort of mob mentality sway Sam's opinion to get him to throw the three gay men out of the bar. And if he does not do so, they threaten to take their business elsewhere.
I will say, at least, everything everyone says is complete garbage, and Diane Chambers reacts to it appropriately, pointing out that they're being, I think, sniveling bigots is the term she uses. The only person whose argument really holds water is Carla, and it's a very self-centered argument, but she says, like, if the bar goes queer, then you're...
No emotional appeal here, Sam. This is a purely intellectual argument. You let this bar go gay, you're gonna have to hire male waitresses. Right? That means that I'm out on the street and I'm not gonna be able to feed little Sammy Tortelli.
So she's not wrong, but her reasoning is very selfish.
Well, she's wrong, and she's like, this should be a very fact-based discussion and not bring emotions into it. And then she, of course, tries to name her unborn children after Sam to tug at his heartstrings.
Wait, we didn't talk earlier in this scene, she says that she doesn't like having gay guys in the bar because it's competition for her. Like, she has enough trouble getting dates. So if more guys come out of the closet, she's going to have to go lesbian in order to, like, get a date. And then she looks at Diane and, like, makes, like, ugh face. It's actually not a bad moment, but it would not be unreasonable to think that Carla Tortelli is a lesbian, because there's that vibe about her.
Well, Diane's comeback for it is perfect. She's like, don't worry, I like my lover's more masculine than you. Not much, but a little bit more.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of good jokes in this episode that we're not talking about, but it is an episode Cheers, and so it's enjoyable and well written, and you will laugh.
Right. Sam is also worried that if the bar goes gay, there'll be fewer single straight women coming to Cheers. And I'm like, wait, when did heterosexual women start going to male gay bars as a thing? Like, was that not like, Sam obviously doesn't know about that phenomenon the way he's talking about it.
I don't think that was a thing for a very long time.
But I just, like, I tried Googling to see if, like, when did this become a thing? And it's actually very hard to find.
I feel like it was in the 2000s. Like, I think it took a long time. Like, quote-unquote fag hags would be a part of gay bars at some point in the 90s, maybe earlier. I don't know. Wasn't going. But it becoming a thing for just, like, straight girls on their own to, like, sort of go because they aren't getting hit on.
Like, was that, like, a West Hollywood specific thing?
No, I mean, I think it was, like, a Chicago Boys Town thing, too. But, you know, I think any big city, maybe a big city, any city with, like, whatever. Never mind.
I did look up. So Sam seems to be won over by these arguments that he should just ask the men to leave. And he actually, even though Diane's protesting to this entire movement, he asked Diane what she should tell the boys. And Diane says, like, hi, we're a group of sniveling bigots and we don't appreciate your kind here. And everyone's like, yeah, that sounds good. I like that. I like that response. I did look up and like, wait, could he legally do this? Yes. I just wanted to make sure to find out what the legal standing was. Fun reminder, the Federal Civil Rights Act does not include any provisions for people regarding to their sexual orientation. A lot of states have passed laws that protect LGBT people from discrimination, but Massachusetts did not pass theirs until 1989. So yeah, there would not have been a single law in place that would have punished Sam Malone for asking these men to leave his bar solely on the fact that they were gay. Fun.
Luckily, he changes his mind because they're such nice gentlemen.
Hi, fellas.
Hi, Sam. What's going on?
Well, I got a little bit of a problem. Maybe you can help me out. See, I'm the owner of this bar, and...
Yeah, we know. We read the article in the newspaper.
Oh, right.
That took a lot of guts.
It really did.
Yeah.
So what's your problem?
As a matter of fact, I don't have a problem. Coach, get these guys a beer on the house.
All right, Sam.
What's the matter, Sammy? You chickening out on it?
Yeah, Sammy. I thought you always had more character, man.
Hey, listen, those guys are staying. Anyone else wants to leave, that's fine.
Okay, Sam, you know what kind of bar this could turn into?
It's not going to turn into the kind of bar that I have to throw people out of.
That was the noblest proposition you've ever dangled.
That is a beautiful line. Like, everything about that exchange is perfect.
Yeah.
And that is why Cheers is an amazing show, and that is why I'm glad that this is the episode we're talking about today. Sam leaves the room for like 5 seconds. And,
to collect himself.
Right. And the barfly's solution is to act like it's closing time.
Yeah, they pretend the bar is closing at 7. I don't know, whatever it is. They all leave the bar. The 3 potential gay men leave with them, and then moments later, the quote-unquote straight barflies return, celebrating their outsmarting of the evil homosexuals.
What's going on here?
Well, we just get rid of your friends, Diane.
Yeah, it was all Normie's idea. The man's a genius.
There you go.
Norman, I think there's something you should know about those guys.
Yeah.
They're not gay. In fact, one of them tried to hit on me tonight.
What? But you said they were.
I said there were 2 gay men in the bar. I didn't say who they were. They, along with myself, have had a wonderful time watching you make complete idiots of yourself. Yeah, the guys I was talking about are still here.
And I think the line is, right, guys? And these 2 men who have, in fact, been in the background the entire time and went back and rewatched the episode a second time just to see if they have any lines or anything. They do not. They're not named in the credits either. So there's like a host of like minor barflies, some of whom are recurring and some of whom are not. And these 2 that are standing on either side of Norm lean in and kiss him on the cheek. And in everyone, everyone finds this uproarious.
Mm-hmm.
And
Norman's a good sport about it. Says one is better than Vera.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't love this moment.
Yeah.
But in an episode of television I do love, it's fine. It's whatever. I feel like one of the guys who kisses him played a principal in something that I watched.
I tried. So I was lucky enough to pick out 2 of the 3 potential gay men, but it's really hard to... I tried to find out who these people were, but they're all like doughy white men who were middle-aged back then and kind of all look the same in the first place. And also it's been like 35 years, so none of them look the same now. So I'm like...
I want to say head of the class. I want to say he was something on head of the class, but maybe I just want to talk about head of the class.
Did head of the class ever do a gay episode?
I'm going to research that right now.
Okay.
Boop, beep, 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 boop, boop.
What is...
That's me researching it.
I don't think that's the noise. No. I can see, like, on paper, it might sound like, oh, that's kind of icky, and it's kind of jokey, and it is kind of like a dumb, like, surprise at the end. And so earlier in the episode, Norm makes this statement that, like, he knows there are no gay people in the bar because the crowd that's in the bar that day is too ugly, which goes back to that stereotype of, like, gay men are attractive, which you said you were in favor of during the Seinfeld episode. And the more I think about it, I'm like, yeah, that's kind of a sucky stereotype because there's people who are not going to fit that stereotype who are no less gay, and that's just going to make life harder for him, but whatever. I like that in the end, the actual gays are as schlubby and doughy and unremarkable as any of the other barflies. So that's a good moment. We wouldn't necessarily like lean in and kiss straight men on the cheek as like a character. I don't. Do you do that?
No.
Okay.
I'll kiss dogs.
Oh, yeah, but not on the mouth.
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
no.
don't.
Did I pause too long?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a nice subversion of expectations if you haven't seen this episode before. And I like that everyone tacitly learns a lesson. And then, bam, that's the end of the episode.
Yep,
they kiss Norm, and there's not even something that plays over the end credits because Cheers didn't really do that.
Nope.
Yeah.
No, I mean, this episode achieves... It does what... This episode is great because it does 2 things. It makes the gay issue personal to one of its main characters.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as it achieves that, it then takes that sort of moral decision Sam has made and puts it to the test in a grander scale of he has now made this decision that he is supportive of his gay friend, but is Sam supportive of gay people? And so it takes that personal link and what people say is the reason that gay rights have achieved what we have in the past however decades, because we've come out of the closet and everyone now knows a gay person. And so it's personalized the issue. And so Cheers personalizes the issue for Sam and then confronts him with the situation where he has to then make the decision. Is this just a decision I am comfortable with my friend, or is this something that is now part of who I am.
You're right. And it actually solves the problem of what we talked about in like the Simpsons episode where John Waters' character tells Homer, it's like, now just every gay man in the country also has to save your life and then you'll be okay with them too. In this instance, every other gay person doesn't have to have a personal connection for Sam. He gets to the point where it's like, okay, they're okay too. This is the decision I'm making on it. And that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like the idea that Sam is not comfortable around gay people. And he doesn't ever really get super comfortable around them because it's not his thing. He doesn't know very many of them. It's a new concept for him. And it's not, we don't see a whole lot of growth there. But the fact that he's not comfortable around gay people is not used as an excuse to discriminate against them. And that is something people have a lot of problems with a lot of like various groups where it's like, you are weird because X, Y, and Z. And that's fine. Like you don't have to like any particular, you don't have to be comfortable around any particular group, gay or otherwise. But once you make the decision that you're going to use that discomfort as an excuse to penalize them or like segregate yourself from them, you're being an asshole.
Your misery shouldn't be their misery.
Right.
That's a self-imposed thing you're doing, whatever. We also only lightly touched on the fact that like this is about an athlete coming out in 1983, a professional athlete in baseball.
Mm-hmm.
We've not come that much further.
Glenn Burke, I guess, but he's not super well known today and also didn't play for that long. And I don't know. I think people who probably remembered him would have found out he was gay, but I'm not sure how big of a national news story that was, really.
But I'm just saying it's not a regular thing. Like,
no.
A now gay professional baseball player would still be a big deal today.
Right. Yeah. Totally. Can we talk about
Shelley Long?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this episode is pretty cut and dry, and obviously we liked it. There's not a lot to discuss, but there is a lot to talk about with Shelley Long.
She's a twit. A lot of the time she's on the show, she's a twit, and you don't see very much of that here. I love that she is a twit. I love that the thing I love most about her is that she is someone who has it in her head that she deserves better and strives for these things, even though she very frequently displays none of the ability to like do those things properly. She's a fuck up. She fucks up a lot, and that never stops her from trying again. And her belief that she's an artist, she's an intellectual, and this is the way she wants to live her life. And I feel like everyone on the show is constantly batting her down. And I feel this is probably something you and I both relate to an extent, and probably a lot of the, like, gay and otherwise, a lot of the creatives I know here in Los Angeles have a little bit of Diane Chambers DNA in us. Not literally.
Ooh. Yeah. And again, like always have to separate Diane Chambers seasons 4 and 5 of Cheers from the concept of her character originally. There's a nobleness about her in those early seasons that is treated as a joke sometimes, but is also earnest. And she actually does believe that the pursuit of academics and introspection and thoughtfulness are things that improved her life, and she wants to bring those concepts and those pursuits to the people of Cheers.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sometimes comes off as condescending, but her heart is in the right place. And yeah, she may think that she's better than them, and that's sort of where she falls flat, because she always has to get taken down a peg or two. But what great hero has not been taken down by hubris?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, she's a great character. I don't know. I just have a lot of love for her.
I feel like it's not a character. There was a certain sort of high-minded feminist character that existed in a lot of other shows when we were kids that you don't really see very much anymore. I feel like most of them are probably derivative to some extent of Diane Chambers. I was trying to think of a modern example, and the closest I can come is maybe Britta from Community, which is, you have not watched Community.
No.
But kind of Alison Brie's character from Community too. It's almost like the Diane Chambers personalities got separated into 2 separate versions. But from the idea of like failing constantly, it's Gillian Jacobs' character. And from the idea of being wide-eyed and a little naive but optimistic, it's Alison Brie's character. So there's that. And
well, I was going to say Pearl from Steven Universe.
She definitely is. She actually, like, yeah.
I mean, no spoilers for last night's episode, but This is not our Steven Universe podcast, but no, like, and again, people who don't watch Steven Universe, it is a cartoon show about a half alien boy who's raised by 3 lesbian space rocks.
One of whom is the Diane Chambers, who is fancy and needs to be taken down a peg very often. But
but like, she's just someone who believes there are right and better ways to achieve things and does her best to sort of live her truth in that way, and is crestfallen when other people don't see that.
Right. Perhaps the greatest Diane Chambers character of all is Shelley Long herself, whom we do not know, but we know a lot about. And it's interesting to look at what Diane's role was on the show and then see Shelley Long as someone who maybe thought she deserved better than what she was getting, especially towards the end of her character arc when they'd kind of changed it in a way that you don't like and I don't like, and she probably didn't like, and tried to step away from Cheers and have a film career. And she's kind of the object of like ridicule now for doing that. She walked away from a successful show where she was a very important part of the show, and the show turned out to be fairly successful without her, with Kirstie Alley. And the idea is that like her movie career was nothing and doesn't amount to anything. And I don't really think that's true, even though,
I mean, don't say that in front of a gay man who loves Troop Beverly Hills, because they will slap the teeth out of your face.
I really like Troop Beverly Hills. I think that's such a good fucking movie. Was not a financial success, I don't think. And critically is the Rotten Tomatoes score not great, but
what was a success financially, Drew?
I almost called it Outrageous Business again. Outrageous Fortune, which we watched. We ended our Cinco de Mayo with a screening of Outrageous Fortune, which is the 1987 female buddy comedy starring Shelley Long and Bette Midler, which is great. It's like a fairly solid, dumb 80s like comedy.
Has a spy plot and everything.
Oh, it's so good. I was thoroughly entertained by it. And people are shocked to find out that this movie, Outrageous Fortune, made more money than Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, which is a buddy comedy that also came out in 1987, but starred 2 men. And Planes, Trains, and Automobiles was a movie I could not get away from. Like, my brother really liked that movie, so he rented it a number of times, and we had like rental nights. But also, it was just on TV a lot, so I've seen it in part like dozens of times, and I don't love it. I realize that it was a big deal, but I think people think about that as just being like a very successful 80s comedy. It made $49.5 million. Outrageous Fortune made $52 million. Was by a few $1 million a greater success. And even today, whenever there's like a female comedy that comes out, there is a fucking insipid debate about whether people have any interest in watching these. And
I mean, we should also mention that Outrageous Fortune was an R-rated female comedy. They swore, they had casual sex.
Right.
There was violence. They were mean to each other. There's just a different bar of success for female comedies that does not exist for male comedians in their movies. Men are allowed to fail and women are not, is sort of
and even when they succeed, we will still find a way to try to say that they fail. Like Shelley Long, who 5 fucking seasons on a hit show, and then she made some movies which, like, some made money, some did not. Some are ones that people care a lot about today. And I don't know what the end of this is, other than we should all be like Shelley Long and
try
and do stuff that people might not expect you to do. And then when you fuck up, just do it again, because it doesn't really matter what people think, and you'll find your own way to do it. Like
this podcast.
Oh my gosh, this podcast.
Speaking of,
this is our last episode. Can you believe we did 10 of these things?
Yes.
Yeah. This feels like it just took so much of your. Okay. Well, sorry. This is the last episode of our first season. We are going to do a season 2. I don't know when it's going to launch, but the idea was, this was kind of a side project. We were like, let's do 10 episodes and see if anyone cares. And some people have cared. And
at least 3.
At least 3 people. We've had 5 guests at least. At least 5 people drove across town to our house to like record with us. But people have reached out to me on social media and told me they enjoyed it, and I really appreciate that. We will do a season 2. We have some idea of what episodes we're going to do. We don't know when it's going to launch. For people that know about me from my now former podcast, We Are Not Young Anymore, I'm actually going to start a new movie podcast with Tony Rodriguez, who is our Golden Girls guest. We're going to start a movie podcast this summer. So this is going to go on hiatus, and I'm going to work on getting that off the ground. But at some point, we're going to come back to this, and I look forward to you guys listening to that, and hopefully you'll still like it.
And in between, we'll do some bonus episodes.
Yeah, we got some cool stuff planned. Some fun one-offs and maybe some TV shows that don't quite fit the criteria of a classic sitcom, and some interviews with people who can speak to gay. Can speak to television and also gay. Those will be cool. So it's not going to be completely dormant, but yeah, thank you for listening, everybody.
Thanks.
Glenn.
Yes, Drew.
In this subsequent hiatus, where can people find out what you're doing?
They can find me on Instagram at Bros Courts. That's BROS Courts. Again, a Steven Universe reference. Mm-hmm. And on Twitter at I Write Wrongs. That is right with a W. Am I anywhere else? Oh, Dead Gay Art on Tumblr, which I don't really update that much. But maybe I will, now that I'm not doing this.
Yeah, I'm sorry I took up so much of your time. This has been a great imposition on you.
Where can people find you, Drew?
I was also going to say, Glenn is also going to be a guest on our new movie podcast. So.
Oh yeah, I don't know what I'm going to talk about yet.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be a terrible episode, but
Care Bears 2, The Next Generation.
We have the power to veto. So you can find me on Twitter at Drew G Mackey and MACKIE. You can find this podcast on Facebook at Gayest Episode Ever. You can find this podcast on Twitter at Gayest Episode. And then we can just find us and all of our social media links on our homepage, which is gayestepisodeever.com.
Bye forever? ? Oh,
more. No. If you want to subscribe to us, please do that on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, or on SoundCloud, where we're based, soundcloud.com/gayestepisodeever. And even though we're going on hiatus, please give us a rate and review. I know, like I said last time, if like someone writes something really funny, we'll read the rate and reviews we got in the past week have been very nice and very earnest. And I thank you all, but no one said anything like, no one made a dirty joke. So like make a penis joke and maybe we'll say that in like,
I don't want to say that. This is a clean podcast.
It's not it's a gay podcast. So make a penis joke. We'll read that in one of our bonus episodes. The first person to make a penis joke and a rate and review, we'll read that. Now I think that's everything I have to say, Glenn. Are we done?
Bye forever?
Bye forever. See you in a few months. Season over.